Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Buddha's teaching, the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha, the folks who come together and practice that teaching. Thank you so much for being here. This is the Metta, Loving-Kindness Sesshin, first full talk. I'm going to use the word metta and loving-kindness and friendliness all interchangeably. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be happy. Whatever wholesome desires they have, may those be fulfilled. So I hope you are beginning to find comfort with the routine here, especially those of you who your bodies are not yet conditioned to sitting still for long hours like this. It gets a little easier over time, and eventually it gets easy, pretty much. And I hope you're beginning to shed the residues of busyness that helped get you here. So we are practicing, celebrating, exploring, contemplating the teachings of loving kindness. We each are the alembic. We each are the field within which this experiment takes place. You are experimenting on yourself with the Buddha's teachings to see what comes out, see what you get when you put in this and take away that. Loving kindness is loving kindness as far as what the Buddha meant when it is universal. And we may in this session begin by emphasizing loving kindness for ourselves. But metta is metta when it is without discrimination. And we work up to that. If we can do it for this being, good. If we can do it for all beings, good. If we can't do it for some beings, that's okay. We'll get there. Universal friendliness. It may be that our cultural climate is pretty cynical, actually, when it comes to teachings like this. It may be that culturally we're jaded because culturally we're wounded. And so something like universal friendliness can be heard as naive or weak or unrealistic, or you think, yeah, but, yes, but, maybe in the forest, but, maybe at Great Vow, but, maybe it's a nice idea for monks and nuns and yogis in the mountains or people long ago, but anyone trying to survive out here, universal friendliness, bro, have you ridden the subway? I hope you prove to yourself with this experiment that absolutely this is not naive. That absolutely you can skillfully practice a spirit of universal kindness wherever you are. And in fact, that's the very best thing you could do for you and anyone else. Or one of the very best things you could do for you or anyone else. Here is Buddha teaching on metta. This is an excerpt from the Metta Nisama Sutta. So the suttas are basically the oral transmission of what the Buddha's cousin heard firsthand in the time of the Buddha's teaching. And they were passed down mouth to ear for generations and generations and generations, and something like a printing press in the span of human history is pretty much brand new, fairly recent. So this comes down to us from a long time ago, and the Buddha was speaking to a group of monks. So Buddha said, "Monks, 11 advantages are to be expected from the release," sometimes it's translated as deliverance, "of heart by familiarizing oneself with thoughts of loving kindness." The release of the heart released from ill will, the heart released from anger, the heart released from fear. 11 advantages are to be expected from the release of heart by familiarizing oneself with thoughts of metta, by the cultivation of loving kindness, by constantly increasing these thoughts, by regarding loving kindness as a vehicle. Well, that's very interesting. We don't often think about it as, in a way, its own path. In many of the early teachings, metta was thought of as like a bus that drops you off at the station where you can then do optimum concentration and wisdom, because you're so softened and so purified of negativity by the time you get off the metta bus. Regarding loving kindness as a vehicle and also as something to be treasured, by living in conformity with these thoughts, by putting these ideas into practice and by establishing them. So he's speaking in terms of cause and effect from his heart, his experience. If you really do this practice, here are one of the ways the fruits could look for you at some point. And maybe that point is one moment of wholeheartedly practicing it, and maybe that point is how your mind changes over time. Number 1, sleeping in comfort. Number 2, waking in comfort. Number 3, having no bad dreams. Number 4, being dear to human beings. Number 5, being dear to non-human beings. Right? So we know that there are many stories of contemplatives in many traditions that just animals would approach them, or spirits would come and ask them for teachings, things like this. Because the next one, number 6, devas protect one. So devas are, maybe the Christian equivalent would be something like guardian angels. And as far as the Buddha is concerned, we're coextensive with them. They're here, but they tend to be shy unless we have a really loving heart. Number 7, fire, poison, and sword cannot touch you. That's really interesting. I don't think he's saying that you couldn't ever find yourself in a building that's burning down. What does that mean? Fire, poison, and sword cannot touch you. Number 8, one's mind can concentrate quickly. Number 9, one's countenance is serene. Number 10, one dies without being confused in mind. So the state of mind one has before death, the moments approaching death, are considered to be in the mix of what happens in the next life, and a significant force in, you'll never meet this person, but the person that is in the link of your stream, how they appear, being unconfused. Number 11, if one fails to attain arhantship, that basically means in this life to become totally purified of all notions of self, other, the 3 so-called poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Such people are called arahants. Number 11 says, if one fails to attain that state here and now, one will be reborn in the Brahma world. Now, basically, if you cultivate a loving heart consistently in this life, you'll go to heaven. That's what it's saying. And heaven, unfortunately, in Buddhism doesn't last forever, or maybe fortunately, depending on how you like to spend your time. But that sounds pretty good, going to the Brahma world. These 11 advantages, monks, are to be expected from the release of heart by familiarizing oneself with thoughts of loving kindness, by cultivation of loving kindness, by constantly increasing these thoughts, by regarding loving kindness as a vehicle and also as something to be treasured, by living in conformity with these thoughts, by putting these ideas into practice, and by establishing them. So I'd like you to guide you in a little bit of just reflection on your own state of mind in your own life. Think about the frequency of negative thoughts and feelings about yourself that happen in a single day. Is it few enough that you could count on one hand? Do you need two hands? Do you need a calculator? Is it in the hundreds, thousands? I hope nobody has it in the thousands. Think about that cumulatively. Think about the residue of cumulatively thinking those negative thoughts about yourself and the feelings that co-arise with those in a week, a month, a year, a decade, and so on. Think about the frequency of negative thoughts and feelings about others that happen in a day. Can you count them on one hand? Two hands? Do you need many hands? Would it be 100 thoughts? 1,000 thoughts? Think about the frequency of frustrations and irritations that you experience. On a hot day, statistically, crime increases. There have been apparently good studies about this. Have you ever noticed when you're driving in the summer how people are a little bit more impatient? Yeah, or your temper might be a little shorter. Think about the frequency of angry spells that you have in a day or a week, a month, a year, a lifetime. And imagine that you are steadfast in this practice of metta, and that those are reduced 20%, 30%, 50%. You have half the negative thoughts about yourself or other. You have half the irritations. At work or with family or at the monastery or in sesshin, the amount of times where you basically lose your warmth and understanding and spill over into the various forms of anger. Imagine that just goes down and down and down and down until it's more an exception than something that people can basically expect. Imagine going through your day with loving kindness firmly rooted. That is your basic way of fielding the world. That is the basic way that people are received. Noisy people and polite people, attractive people and not attractive people, people who feel like friends and people who feel like adversaries, all of them met with more and more loving kindness. Imagine that's you. Please imagine that's you, because you imagining that is part of the formula of that coming to fruition. This is possible. Instead of getting frustrated with someone, you see the difficulty in being human. Instead of judging yourself, you laugh a little bit at the things that you do imperfectly. Instead of anxiety about others' thoughts about you, you're just present with them wishing well. Your energy's freed up not to worry what they're thinking, but just to hold a warm space for them. Let them have their thoughts. If they are judgmental thoughts, that's that's unfortunate because you know the effect of those. Instead of the stress of strategizing and contriving yourself to secure love and affection from others, imagine that you let that affection come as it comes. Because you are ever increasing an inner glow of kindness. You companion yourself. It's really nice when it comes to you. I really like it when my partner's sweet to me. I really like that. But I don't have to depend on it. Because I'm sweet to me from the inside out. Imagine sitting down for meditation with a gentleness. And that's largely because no state of body or mind is an enemy. You don't divide your own self into the adversary and the okay. You notice how we do that? That's one of the things that we can study in the discomfort of Sesshin. We often divide ourselves into the adversary, that problematic feeling or part, and the okay stuff. Imagine there are no adversaries in your own experience, and no echoes of I said, they said, she said haunting you because your words have been coming from good vibes or you just aren't saying them. And so with that softer and gentler body mind dropping more easily into meditative absorption because many of the obstacles have just been melted. They've just been melted, or we're not accumulating those obstacles like resentment, like regret about harmful speech, etc. So this is a path. This is not something we're supposed to be now. And maybe to be 100% in this is, on some level, just an ideal, but a very beautiful kind of North Star ideal. The kind of ideal that can infuse life with meaning. I'm going to walk towards this deeply rooted loving kindness. Meaning all the way. So this is the path that we're invited to walk. We're gradually marinating and being changed by this vibe and this way of thinking and feeling. We will be moving between two basic views of Dharma in these teachings. One is cultivation is real. Right? Some of you have played musical instruments, and you know that you sit down to play your musical instrument now, and all of those years of practice are now there with the ease with which you play the scale. The ease with which you find the chords, right? There's a cumulative effect to this practice. And we could, if I understood these things, I might say something about neuroplasticity or something, but I don't understand these things. But we're changed. We build a muscle, you could say. And there is an immediacy to this practice. This is a stance you can take right now. Don't wait. Right now, be the friend to all experience. This is not some foreign state of being that belongs to saints. Any moment we can remember, oh yeah, the friend. Now, I think it's important to point out that you're going to have a you version of metta. You're going to have a you version of it. No? Sometimes people encounter one of these kind of teachers who is just so soaked through, they ooze metta. It's a beautiful thing to meet somebody like that. A lot of people, that's their main practice for decades and decades, and they're sort of just like dripping with loving kindness. And it's like, ooh, yeah, that's what it's like. You're oozy, fuzzy, warmy like that. And we're like, oh yeah, I'll be like Ajahn so-and-so if it's really working. And maybe you will, but you have a you version of metta. I was imagining my grandfather when I was contemplating this, and he was from the Bronx, and he was in the military, and he would have his, a Bronx 70-year-old version of metta. He wouldn't be like oozy fuzzy, but it would be genuine, right? Because we have essentially the same heart, but we don't have the same upbringing. We don't have the same mind backlog. We don't have the same personalities. We don't have the same bodies. So in a way, the essential heart, your background, and the practice all meet and they mix, and there's an alchemy, and it's called you as metta. It doesn't need to, and it may never look like someone else's embodiment looks, and that's fine. So we tweak metta at the same time as metta tweaks us. The practice of the Dharma changes us, and we change the Dharma as we understand it, as we go. So not only is it a Tom, Jill, and Harry metta and not a one-size-fits-all flavor, but it's not even necessarily a feeling. It's not necessarily an emotion. You could sit there and tie yourself in a knot waiting, I want to feel that thing that I've heard about. But it might not be a feeling, right? Or if it is a feeling, sometimes it may be very subtle. Sometimes it may be very ecstatic. That might be how this recipe unfolds in you. Okay? Kindness has infinite shades. Okay? Kindness has various intensities. The teachings one of the things that is greatly emphasized in the early Buddhist teaching is metta as an antidote for ill will, for anger, for irritation, right? That whole spectrum, for grudge, all of that. So the absence of ill will, and what's a definition of ill will? Ill will is the wish for something to not exist. We want it to not be there. Or we want something, some feeling, some state, some being to not be the way they are. Let's call that a working definition of ill will. Ill will is basically an oppositional stance. There's me, and I am being antagonized or irritated or bothered by that. Whatever it may be. This is why we could say just to really sit in Zazen is metta, because Zazen is dropping the oppositional stance. Zazen is seated meditation. So simply to release the oppositional stance is an aspect of metta. And it may not come with some juicy vibe. But if you hang out there long enough, maybe some juicy vibe will come. You have to do the experiment. Right? All states of experience are like waveforms. They're like vibrations that are moving through your body, mind, and awareness. They can't stay the same. They can't always feel the same. They have to, by nature, move. They have to, by nature, vibrate. Right? And that which vibrates changes, and that which changes, changes. So I want to talk some about techniques of metta, but first to talk about techniqueless metta, as I've already begun a bit. Because we all have a heart-mind that has the potential of great loving kindness, drawing that kindness out for some people will be easily instinctive. So if you feel like, I already get this, I know how to do this practice, I am a father, I know exactly what it's like to have loving kindness, or I'm an auntie, whatever, or I'm a kitty dad. Of course I know what loving kindness is. Trust that you know what loving kindness is. And then for you, what we're doing here is you're just, what is it like to really abide and marinate and sustain and expand that? Right? Because many of us have, feelings of loving kindness catalyzed by pleasant beings in our lives, but then we go to work and that's all out the window. So this is an experiment in, yes, you know how to access the feeling initially, you know the vibe. What happens if you really lean into it? You really feed it. For some reason, I'm getting the image of inflating a balloon, but that's not good because you don't want it to pop. But it'll pop sometimes. It will. And then you start again. So if it's instinctive for you to spark kindness, you work with sustaining it. Work with widening its spectrum. At some point we'll talk about the traditional practice. You begin with yourself, then you begin with people who you like, and then you begin with people you're like, and then you begin with people who you don't like. That's spiritual work. You stretch. That person which your mind clamps the heart around, you practice unclamping it for that person, for those beings, whoever they may be. So sustaining it, widening it. Right? And that's a matter of dedication, presence, and concentration, like all of these practices. Interestingly, and maybe related to what I'm saying here, Buddha didn't dwell much on the technique of metta. Actually, some people would say the Buddha did not teach a loving-kindness technique. He wasn't super technique-y, Buddha. I think we chant the Metta Sutta before dinner. Essentially, Buddha taught radiating metta in all directions, embracing everything and everyone equally. So I don't know what the word they're translating, radiate, but radiate to me has like a quality of like awareness, light, energy. So you radiate the energy. You can do that with a visualization. You might be a kinesthetic person who can just expand feeling. But that's supported by the phrases. So the mind is thinking particular thoughts that are supporting the vibe, and the vibe is supporting the thoughts. May I be at ease, may I be happy, may I be safe, may all beings be safe, may all beings be at ease. Those actually isn't the traditional formula. In our context, these are more, I think, appropriate phrases. The words aren't a rigid formula. They can be tweaked here and there, as long as you don't lose the basic idea. If we tweak the
phrases to find ones that resonate from us, if it's the practice of metta, it is wishing the best for ourselves and others. So some traditional ways of doing it are may all beings have good health. I always thought that was not very skillful because it's not possible for all beings to sustain good health. But it is possible for them to be at ease, right? So if you're like me and your mind goes, wait a second, I don't want all beings to be happy, I want them to be enlightened. Then you could do, may all beings realize their true nature. Oh, what a profoundly generous wish. May all beings realize their true nature. So I like to begin with, for example, may I be at ease, but then eventually I might feel that's a little bit too wordy because I'm in meditation. I want it to be simple. So then for me, I do abiding at ease, abiding happily. Or you could simplify it even further. Now, repeating them in a rote way, I'll use the word circulating, because I think that's kind of how it is. You circulate the phrases. Circulating them in a rote way may have some benefit. It might be that somehow you're sort of seeding your subconscious, and eventually, even if you do this in a rote way, it will start to change your mind. Right? Some sort of slow auto-hypnosis or something. It may be that if you're doing them in a rote way, at least if you're doing that, you have less room for other thoughts, many of which may not be that helpful to you. This is one of my practices. If I'm in a crabby mood, or if I see that I'm starting to move towards judgment of anyone, I'll just replace it with metta. So the rote may have some benefit, but this practice, if you truly wish for it to change you, to change the heart, you have to bring sincerity. You have to bring sincerity. And you have to find your way with it. We each have our own, just like with concentration meditation, we each have our own obstacles. With this loving-kindness practice, we each will have our own obstacles. For me, it wasn't until I centered my attention in my chest so that it became visceral and somatic that I really began to understand what it was to open the heart or to feel how it's closed. I'm present in my chest as I do the metta practice, so that's an element of concentration, right? Bringing my attention back to this area, specifically to that little muscle, that little spiritual muscle. And then someone comes to mind and I feel a little tension there. Oh, interesting. I think of so-and-so and my heart gets a little harder. That's the person to do. May you be at ease. May all your wholesome desires be fulfilled. Watch what happens to the heart as you do that. So to experiment with the difference between rote metta, may you be at ease, may I be at ease, may I be at ease. May they be at ease, may they be at ease. Okay, you could do that. Or to find the sincere wish in yourself. Some people think, I don't know how I ended up in a loving-kindness session. I just live at the monastery and I have to do what I'm told. And I came for Zen, not this fuzzy crap. And that was me when I was in my 20s. And the funny thing is, there's a belief that one has a final self tied up in that. Do you know what I mean by a final self? A final self means you believe, I am the way I am, and my mind is what it is. Right? Yeah, that's just not how I am. I'm not a loving guy. I'm not kind. I don't hurt anybody, but I'm not kind. But that's the belief in the final self. How do you know who you are? How do you know what your mind is capable of? Actually, we really don't know what our minds are capable of. So don't believe in a final self. Your vibe can be shifted. That's the faith that underlies this practice. Now you can do your regular meditation blended with metta phrases in whatever way feels right and have benefit to that. So if you feel well settled, for example, in a breath practice, you can fuse the phrases, infuse, merge them together. Exhaling, may I be at ease. However you want to do it. And sometimes I practice it, I'll just do listening meditation, receptive, alert awareness of the birds. And then I have the metta phrases in the background. It's good. Again, you can occupy the thought channel with metta. It's better than a lot of what else comes in there. So you can merge practices like that creatively. There may be a time, and I think this is one of the things that Buddha points to about you purify the heart with metta and it helps you go deeper in concentration, where you start out for a period or two and you're doing metta devotedly and you intuit, I could drop this now. It would be good to just go more into the clarity of mind, the quietness of mind. Good. Do that. There's no rules. And 10 minutes later, your mind's doing its ordinary dance again, pick it back up. Right? So earlier I said simply to release the oppositional stance is an aspect of metta. Some people who have an idea of non-duality or an idea of authenticity, the idea of authenticity is what I feel is real, what I feel is authentic. I'm not going to feel an inauthentic feeling. If I have to generate it, it's inauthentic. Some people have this way of thinking. But all feelings are generated. This is just being creative about it. But sometimes people feel like, well, it's inauthentic to push away my dis-ease with metta. I'm not going to use metta as like some sort of hose to like wash away my grumpiness. Or my anger is warranted. Look at how such and such is going. It's authentic. But metta phrases like, may I be at ease, are not wishing, for example, a present pain to be turned to a pleasure. These are not like magic spells in that way. The magic is in being at ease with what is. Right? So if you are crabby, you can still do metta without trying to push away the crabby. May I be at ease with this very state. So the words are ultimately a vehicle for the vibe. The vibe plus the release of oppositional stances to this experience. Another form of practicing this, or definitely can be combined, is to work with smiling. Okay? So I want to invite you to try smiling now. And it doesn't have to be an ecstatic grin, but it can't be like totally tiny. Smile to the point where you can feel, you know with your eyes closed that you're smiling. And involve the eyes in that too. Let the eyes smile just a little bit. And notice if it's true for you that there's a feeling, there's a texture to a smile. It's got a kind of energy. Let this be a part of your setup of Zazen, just like how you fold your hands or sit upright. Let this smile mudra be a basic part. So that in itself is a kind of reverse engineering, right? When we're feeling metta, we often smile. Well, so smile will help bring the feeling forth. But also if you do have a feeling sense of the smile, there are further practices you can do. So tune into that feeling now. And imagine that it begins to spread. I like to imagine/feel that it spreads into my heart first. And my heart and that smile merge together. There's a smiling heart texture. Then, like water poured on paper, it gradually suffuses and spreads out to your whole body. You could use any visualization, any creative means of imagining, feeling this. Your whole body is a warm smile. And you just marinate in that feeling. And maybe eventually, when you are suffused with it, you expand it out beyond the boundaries of your body. Where you begin to invite the three categories of beings, those dear, those you're neutral about, those that spark ill will. You encounter heartache, or you encounter anxiety in yourself, or what pain. The smile begins to suffuse that. It flows and meets the hard edges or the sore places inside yourself. If you really gave yourself over to this, you could save thousands of dollars in therapy. Now, like all Dharma practices, we sabotage ourselves if we try something usually we try it for 3 minutes, and then we go, nah, I gave it a good go, and I'm I'm a shikantaza gal. You have to really give a practice a try. In fact, that which you have the most resistance to often holds the most potential in this practice. That's been my experience. You have to give it a go. And maybe that means for a while you feel like you're faking it. Okay, there aren't authentic feelings. All feelings are created through body, mind, and environment. It's okay if it's fake. Maybe it will shift for you. Hang in there. Also warrants being said, it doesn't serve anyone to do channel surfing meditation. Okay, so on the one hand, experiment, because of among practices, I feel that metta is the thing that most warrants experimentation until we find, that's my way in. But on the other hand, channel surfing meditation is you're like, oh yeah, smile. Nah, let's imagine that all beings are in bubbles of light. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, let's well, what else is on? Oh, Ajahn so-and-so said to do, let's do that. And so what you practice is not metta, but distraction masquerading as metta. You gotta do a practice for a chunk of time. So the way things are set up here is we almost never sit for more than 25 minutes or 30 minutes without shifting or walking meditation. Right? So commit for a period and then change. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah? There's a little bit of nuance. It's a little bit different than letting go of the metta when you intuit your concentration will go deeper without it, right? But try not to just bounce around too much. Do experiment and do find some constancy with a method. This practice, I believe there's a way you can marinate in it in stillness that's different than activity. And there is no reason you can't do this as often as you can remember in any activity. So one simple body practice of metta is to relate with gentleness to all the objects and structures you meet and that meet you throughout the day. So gently handling the bowls or the spoon, or gently touching the door. Gentleness putting away your clothes, making the bed. You could experiment with gentle walking. What is that like to try to have the feet meet the earth in a gentle way? You know, there are many of these, and Jogen and I will make different suggestions as we go. But you can be creative. You, as essentially a Buddha, know exactly what loving kindness is. You know what this is. And we're just here helping each other practice it in a sustained way, which is unusual in the world. So we're waking back into the garden of the heart over and over and over and over as often as we can remember. Yeah. Patiently tending this garden, being the friend with this. Whatever your this is the perfect opportunity to apply these teachings.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.